Hey vinyl community, I am here today with some VCLT, and I already know what it is, so it's not going to come as a surprise to me, but I thought I would take the opportunity to open this up. I'm going to show exactly what it is, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about this artist and some other stuff that I have by this individual. So I am going to go ahead and open this up and explain a little bit of the story behind it. Yes. This is Jeff Buckley Grace. I had this already on vinyl, and if you saw one of my recent episodes, I showed some albums that I had inadvertently damaged through my own carelessness. This was one of them. I was taking it out. I had this inner sleeve facing the wrong way, opened it up. The record came out, fell on the floor, got scratched. You already heard the story probably, but Josh from JC Flipside Vinyl replace this copy for me. Now, if you haven't checked out JC Flipside Vinyl, he's got about, I don't know, he's probably up to 3,000 subscribers right now. And the reason why is because he is one of the coolest guys in the vinyl community. He's one of the most generous guys. And the thing that I love about Josh is that he will watch everybody's videos and he pumps everybody up. He's always got encouraging words to say when he leaves comments on your videos. I don't know how he watches as many videos as he does, but he is so cool. He has helped promote my channel immensely. I owe a lot of my subscribership to the shout outs that he's given on his channel. So I really appreciate it. And what a generous guy. Not only did he replace my Beach Boys CD that had gotten shipped to the wrong address, but now he has replaced my Jeff Buckley copy. It just speaks to what a great guy Josh is. So I cannot say enough about Josh, and definitely check out his channel if you haven't already, which I would find hard to believe. But nonetheless, this is Jeff Buckley. This is his only studio album that was released during his lifetime. Grace, he is somebody who passed away very tragically, but left us with one of the most gorgeous, perfect records that I have in my collection. If you're not familiar with this album, definitely check it out. It was recorded and released in 1994. I think it was recorded late 1993, early 1994. So right around the time when grunge was sort of, I don't want to say dying off a little bit, but there was more alternative kinds of voices coming out. The singer-songwriters were kind of back in vogue, and Jeff Buckley was the son of Tim Buckley, who was a singer-songwriter in the late 60s, early 70s. He tragically passed away from a heroin overdose, but he was very much an absentee father, and that was one of the things that Jeff Buckley really tried to come to terms with in his adulthood, was the fact that his father had abandoned him to pursue a life in music. And Jeff had such a great artistic gift. His voice was incredible. He was a gifted guitar player, composer. And so some of the songs on this album directly speak to his relationship that he had with his dad. And I'm going to show you a couple things that I have from Jeff Buckley that are Jeff Buckley related. This is a book that was released, I don't know, maybe 10, more than that, probably like 15 years ago, actually. And it's called Dream Brother. This is Tim Buckley, and this is Jeff Buckley. And what it does is it devotes a chapter, it sort of parallels the two of their lives. It devotes a chapter to Tim Buckley, and then it has a chapter about Jeff Buckley, sort of as they were both becoming involved in the music scene, and as they were starting to record and whatnot. And so it really parallels their lives, and also the relationship, the strained relationship that Jeff had with his dad. Jeff was raised by his mother, and he only knew his dad really through his music and the records that he left behind. The title Dream Brother is actually a track off of Grace. And in the song Dream Brother, he kind of addresses the fact that he was abandoned by his father. He is speaking to a friend of his through the lyrics in this song. And the friend of his has kids and is going through a divorce. And Jeff Buckley is speaking to his friend, telling him, don't be like the one who left me behind. Don't be like the one who left me so old. Don't be like the one who left behind his name. because they're waiting for you, meaning his friend's kids are waiting for their father, just like he waited for his father and nobody ever came. So he's basically telling his friend, look, don't be an absentee father like mine was. Make sure that you take care of your kids, or you're going to have the emotional scars that I had. So that's why the author titled this book, Dream Brother. They're not brothers. You might be led to believe that by the title and the fact that there's two here. But nonetheless, it's a real interesting biography. It talks about, Jeff, who his first album, actually, when he was signed to Columbia Records, he was playing some coffee houses, and one of the coffee houses that he played was Chenet in New York. And this was originally released as an EP. It's now been re-released as a deluxe edition with 2 discs. And it's really showing Jeff, just him and his guitar. And he's playing to a packed coffee house, interacting with the audience, telling stories about the songs that influenced him. It's a just very intimate performance. But it's nothing like the production that he would lend to his first studio album, Grace. But there are some songs that would end up on Grace from this. But this was recorded, I think, a year or two. I think this was released in 1992, so before his first studio album came out. And then he recorded his first studio album with a group of musicians and had a lot of admirers. Robert Plant was a huge Jeff Buckley fan from Soundgarden. Chris Cornell was a huge Jeff Buckley fan. So many people. He met Paul McCartney. I mean, he was definitely a critical darling. So many people spoke so highly of Grace. And it's really a one-in-a-lifetime kind of recording. It's very moving. It rocks very hard in places. It's very soft in spots, but his voice is just so angelic, and he does so much with it. It's so many different styles on here, and it just really showcases all of his creativity. So he ended up recording Grace, and he was in the middle of recording his second studio album. He'd done some sessions that did not turn out well. I believe they were recording in New York, and he wasn't happy with any of the sessions. I think he was working with Andy Wallace, who had produced his first album, and then he decided, well, I'm going to go record an album in Memphis. And so he went down to Memphis and he rented a house, and the rest of his band was supposed to meet him later that week. And so he gets to Memphis, and a friend of his, he and a friend of his decide to go kind of tour downtown Memphis. And while they're there, they stop by the Wolf River, and Jeff Buckley decides that he wants to go in for a swim, even though there are signs posted saying it's dangerous to swim because there are large ships that go by, and it's just a drowning risk. And so very tragically, Jeff Buckley went out to swim fully clothed, wearing heavy boots, he was wading out in the water, swimming. His friend had brought a boombox radio, and they were listening to Led Zeppelin. He was singing A Whole Lot of Love. His friend turned around. When he went to look back, Jeff was nowhere to be found. Unfortunately, Jeff had drowned in the river, and they found him a couple days later, several miles down the river. They recovered his body. So the songs that he had been recording for his second album, what was pretty much laid down on tape anyway, they released as this album. This is Sketches for My Sweetheart the Drunk, which his second album, he had the working title, My Sweetheart the Drunk. So that's why it was titled Sketches, because they're unfinished works. Some of them are demos. Some of them sound like fully realized studio recordings, but just wasn't satisfied with everything on here. So there's no telling what his second record would have sounded like. Would he have developed some of the songs that are on here? Would he have recorded entirely new compositions? What would have happened? It's one of the unsolved mysteries, one of the things that we'll never know. But definitely, if you like Grace, this is worth checking out for sure. There's a couple of live CDs that I have. This one is just various live performances. some on MTV, some on other radio stations or TV programs, and then there's a DVD also included with this. This is some live performances from the Grace tour. This one is called Mystery White Boy. And then I also have, this is the deluxe CD version of Grace. It's got a bonus disc. There's a song called Forget Her, which everybody wanted to be on this record because it was such a standout track, but Jeff didn't feel that he didn't feel it fit with the mood of the rest of the record. He felt it was a little too commercial sounding. Everyone said it would have made a great single, but he decided to leave it off. That is on here. There's some alternative versions, some live tracks, some stuff that didn't appear on this record that he'd been working on. So definitely, if you're looking to dive a little bit deeper into the album, this would not be a bad place to follow up. The next book that I have, this is also a Jeff Buckley book. This is Jeff Buckley, From Hallelujah to Last Goodbye. Hallelujah, of course, was a Leonard Cohen song that he made his own. I think Jeff Buckley recorded the definitive version of that song that was included on Grace. It's just a gorgeous song, a gorgeous version that he recorded of that track. And it's one of the most moving performances, one of the most moving covers that you'll ever hear. But this was written by his business manager. And I actually went to it's like a book signing, a book reading. His manager, who is Dave Laurie. He wrote it with Jim Irvin, but Dave Laurie, we actually got to meet. He signed my book, and I got to ask him a couple questions. And he read passages from the books, as it's in a very intimate setting. There were couches and things. It was just a real informal type of reading, but it was very cool to hear stories about Jeff and his life. And people from the audience could ask questions. And I think that was one of the questions that I asked him was, you know, how much of the material on here did he feel would have really been a part of a second album if he had lived and gone on to record a second album. You know, anyway, I think that the real answer is that we'll never know. I mean, some of the stuff from the first disc obviously sounds very finished and polished, like it could have been released, but, you know, Jeff was extremely, he had an extreme attention to detail, and he was not going to put anything out that he wasn't happy with. So anyway, this is a great book to check out. It's got some personal anecdotes of his relationship with Jeff, and just a real cool read if you're interested in him. So anyway, got to say thank you once again to my good friend Josh, and definitely if you're a Jeff Buckley fan, check out some of the other stuff that I've shown here. If you're not familiar with Jeff Buckley, check out the album Grace. It is really worth owning. Everybody take care and have a great one.